I was the other woman. Then I met his wife. I need to tell you what I did and why I'll never forgive myself. They say confession is good for the soul, but I don't think my soul deserves that kind of mercy. I was the other woman. And before you judge me, though you have every right to, let me tell you that I've judged myself far more harshly than you ever could. This is the story of how I destroyed a marriage, broke a heart, and learned the most devastating lesson of my life. Too late. I met Daniel at a corporate conference in Chicago, one of those soul-crushing networking events where everyone's pretending their job is more interesting than it actually is. I was 29, newly promoted to senior consultant, riding high on my career. I wasn't looking for love. I definitely wasn't looking for someone else's husband. He was sitting at the hotel bar, and when our eyes met, something just clicked. He was magnetic, the kind of man who makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. We talked for hours that first night about everything: philosophy, ambitions, the lives we wanted to build. He never mentioned a wife, not that first night. It started innocently enough: coffee meetings, lunch between conferences. He was in town frequently for work, and I convinced myself we were just friends, really good friends who had incredible chemistry. When he finally told me about her, about Sarah, he made it sound like a technicality. "We're married on paper," he said, "but we've been emotionally divorced for years. We're basically roommates." I've heard those words been used a million times, haven't they? But when you're falling for someone, you convince yourself your situation is different, that your connection is special enough to justify it. The affair started 6 months after we met. I remember the exact moment. It was raining, we'd had wine, and he looked at me like I was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. He told me he was planning to leave her, that he just needed time to figure out the logistics, time to do it right, time to not hurt her more than necessary. And God help me, I believed him. I waited. We built this secret world together: stolen weekends, late-night phone calls, hotel rooms in cities where nobody knew us. He made me feel alive in ways I didn't know were possible. And yes, I knew it was wrong, but I had convinced myself that love, real, soul-deep love, was worth the collateral damage, that we were victims of bad timing and social conventions. I justified it in every way possible. I told myself that if his marriage was really solid, he wouldn't be with me, that I wasn't breaking up a happy home. The home was already broken. I convinced myself that Sarah probably knew on some level and just didn't care anymore, that maybe she even had her own secrets. I created an entire narrative in my head where I wasn't the villain, where I was just a woman who had the misfortune of falling in love with someone who was technically unavailable. For a year and a half, I lived in this bubble, this beautiful, terrible bubble where ethics were negotiable and love conquered all. He was careful, always. He never mentioned specific details about his home life, never complained about her in ways that felt too real. It was always vague. We want different things. We've grown apart. We stay together out of habit. I never pushed for more information because, truthfully, I didn't want to know. Knowing would make her real, and if she was real, then what I was doing was real too. I preferred the fantasy, the version where she was a placeholder and I was the actual love story. But fantasies don't last forever. Reality has a way of crashing in, and when it did, it destroyed everything I thought I knew. I met her on a Tuesday. Isn't it strange how life-changing moments happen on the most ordinary days? Daniel and I had dinner plans at this Italian place downtown, one of our spots. He was running late, texted me to go ahead and get a table. I was scanning the menu when I heard his voice. My heart did that stupid flutter it always did. But when I looked up, ready to smile, I saw her, walking beside him, his hand on the small of her back. Sarah. She was nothing like I had imagined. I'd constructed this image in my head, frumpy, cold, checked out, but the woman standing 15 feet away was beautiful, not in an obvious way, but in that quiet, devastating way that stops you cold. She was laughing at something he said, really laughing, her whole face lit up. She was petite, with dark hair pulled back, wearing a navy dress that looked effortless. But it was her eyes that gutted me. They were kind, genuinely kind, the eyes of someone who still believed in good things. Daniel spotted me then. For just a second, I saw panic flash across his face, but he recovered quickly. He was always good at that. He guided her past my table without acknowledging me, and I sat there, frozen, watching them get seated in a corner booth, watching him pull out her chair, watching him look at her the way he looked at me. He texted me from the bathroom. "Emergency, her mother's sick, had to bring her. I'm so sorry, I'll explain everything." But something had shifted in me. Sitting there, I watched them through the entire meal. She touched his hand across the table. He smiled at her. They shared a dessert, and there was nothing about their interaction that looked like roommates. This wasn't a dead marriage. This was something else, something I didn't understand. I left before they did. I couldn't breathe. The next day, I told Daniel we needed to talk, really talk about her, about us, about what was actually happening. He gave me the usual lines. "It's complicated. You don't understand the full picture. I'm protecting you from the mess." But for the first time, I didn't accept it. I did what I should have done from the beginning. I looked her up. Sarah Mitchell. There she was, her life laid out in careful posts, photos of them at charity events, anniversary tributes where he looked genuinely happy, pictures from a trip to Greece last summer. While he was supposedly miserable in his marriage, he was watching sunsets with her in Santorini. I scrolled back years, their wedding photos. God, the way he looked at her. Comments from friends about couple goals and true love. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A post from 8 months ago, a photo of them at the hospital, both wearing brave smiles. The caption, "Starting the fight of our lives. Grateful to have my rock beside me through this journey. Hashtag cancer warrior, hashtag stronger together." Cancer. Sarah had cancer. For 8 months, while I was sneaking around with her husband, she was fighting for her life. I went back through our timeline, every hotel room, every lie, every stolen moment. He'd started the affair with me right around her diagnosis, maybe even before. While she was getting biopsies and CT scans and bad news, he was telling me I was his future. I felt sick, physically sick. But I kept digging because I needed to understand. I found her blog. She'd been documenting her journey. Her words were so honest, so raw. She wrote about the fear, the treatments, the way it tested her marriage, and then she wrote something that broke me. Through all of this, Daniel has been my constant. When I wanted to give up, he reminded me what I was fighting for, our future, our dreams, growing old together. I don't know what I did to deserve a love this steady, but I thank God for it every single day. I called him. It was 2 a.m. and I didn't care. "She has cancer," I said when he answered. Silence. Long, damning silence. Then, "Who told you that?" Not denial, not explanation, just, "Who told you?" "How could you?" I whispered. "How could you do this to her? While she's fighting cancer, we're..." He tried to explain. God, he tried. The stress, the fear of losing her, needing an escape, not meaning for it to happen. Every word made it worse. I hung up, blocked his number, but I couldn't block the images in my head. Sarah sitting in chemo chairs, Sarah losing her hair, Sarah being brave and grateful for a husband who was betraying her in the cruelest possible way. And me who'd helped him do it. I couldn't let it go. For weeks, I spiraled. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face from that restaurant, that kind, unsuspecting face. I destroyed people before, ended relationships, broken hearts, but this was different. This was a woman fighting for her life, and I'd been another battle she didn't even know she was facing. I had to know more. I needed to understand what kind of person I'd become. So I did something crazy. I reached out to one of their mutual friends, pretended I was considering hiring Daniel's firm, wanted to know more about him, asked casual questions about his marriage. "Oh, they're solid," she told me. "Sarah's been through hell this year, but Daniel's been amazing. He's at every appointment, every treatment, holds her hand through everything." Holds her hand through everything. The same hands that held mine, the same hands that texted me from hospital parking lots. I pieced it together like a horrible puzzle. The times he couldn't see me, those were her treatment days. The business trips where he'd sneak away for an hour, those were the gaps between her appointments. He wasn't living a double life out of passion. He was using me as an anesthetic, a way to numb himself to what he was facing at home. I wasn't his future. I was his escape pod from reality. And I'd been so blinded by what I thought was love that I never questioned it. I never asked the hard questions. I never demanded to see the cracks in his marriage because I was terrified they weren't really there. I found out she attended a cancer support group every Thursday evening at a community center near their home. I don't know what possessed me, but I went. I sat in my car across the street and waited. I told myself I just needed to see her again, to confirm she was real, to make my guilt concrete. She arrived alone, walking slowly, carefully. She'd lost her hair, wore a beautiful scarf wrapped elegantly. Even sick, even fighting, she carried herself with grace. I watched her greet the others, saw how she hugged a woman who seemed to be struggling, how she laughed at someone's joke. She wasn't just surviving, she was still showing up for other people, still being kind, still being human. Everything I'd stopped being the moment I chose myself over her. I decided to end it completely. No contact, no closure conversations, just gone. I deleted everything, photos, texts, emails, blocked him on every platform. He tried to reach me through work, through friends. I refused all of it. 3 months passed. Sarah's social media showed her in remission, ringing the bell at the cancer center, celebrating with Daniel beside her. They looked happy, really, genuinely happy. I wanted to feel relieved, like maybe my removal from their lives had helped somehow. But then something happened that changed everything. I received a letter, hand-delivered to my apartment, no return address. Inside was a card, expensive stationery, elegant handwriting. It said, "We need to talk. I know who you are, Sarah." She'd included her phone number. Every instinct screamed for me to ignore it, to run, but I couldn't. I called. We agreed to meet at a cafe the next day. I didn't sleep that night. I prepared for rage, for tears, for confrontation. I deserved all of it. When I arrived, she was already there, waiting. She looked healthier than the last time I'd seen her. Her hair was growing back in soft curls. She smiled when she saw me. Not a warm smile, but not cruel either, just knowing. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. My hands were shaking. "How long have you known?" I asked. Her smile turned sad. "From the beginning," she said. "I've known from the very beginning." She told me everything, how she'd found a hotel receipt 4 months into our affair with Daniel, how she'd seen the messages he'd hastily deleted, how she'd known about every meeting, every lie, every betrayal. "Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you confront me, confront her?" She took a slow sip of her tea. "Because I was dying," she said simply. "At least, I thought I was. Stage 3 cancer, aggressive, poor prognosis. The doctors gave me a 40% chance of making it to 5 years. My throat closed. I was terrified," she continued, "terrified of dying, terrified of leaving him alone, terrified of what would happen to him after I was gone. And then I found out about you. At first, I was destroyed. I wanted to burn everything down. But then I realized something. Daniel isn't strong. He's never been strong. He's good and kind and loving, but he crumbles under pressure. He needs someone to lean on, and I was too busy trying not to die to be that person for him. So he found you. She looked at me then, really looked at me. I made a choice. I decided that if I was going to die, I didn't want to spend my last months fighting. I wanted to spend them living. So I let it happen. I let him have his escape, and I focused on surviving. She pulled an envelope from her bag, slid it across the table to me. "Open it," she said. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, all in her handwriting. I wrote to you throughout my treatment, every time I was angry, every time I was hurt, every time I wanted to hate you but couldn't. I wrote to you. My hands trembled as I read. They were devastating, raw accounts of her pain, her fear, her bewilderment at how her husband could do this while she fought for her life. But they were also something else. They were reflections on love, on marriage, on the ways we fail each other, on how hurt people hurt people. "Why are you showing me these?" I asked. "Because you need to understand," she said. "You need to understand what you were part of." But that wasn't all. She pulled out her phone, showed me photos I'd never seen. Her during treatment, bald, exhausted, barely able to stand. Daniel beside her, holding her up. The same days he'd texted me that he loved me. The same nights he'd promised me a future. "I wanted you to see this," she said quietly. "Not to make you feel guilty, though I hope you do, but because I need you to understand the timeline. Every moment of joy you had with him was built on my suffering. Every promise he made to you was stolen from vows he made to me. You weren't his salvation. You were his cowardice." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She was right about everything. "I'm not here for an apology," she continued. "I'm here because you need to know something. I'm in remission now. Against all odds, I'm going to live. And Daniel and I are working on our marriage. He doesn't know I'm here. He doesn't know I've known all along, and I'm never going to tell him." "Why?" I managed to ask. "Why protect him?" She smiled sadly. "Because that's what love is, not the fairy tale you two were playing at, not the passion and stolen moments and rules broken. Real love is choosing someone even when they don't deserve it. It's seeing someone at their worst and deciding they're still worth it. It's sacrifice. It's choosing to be hurt and staying anyway." She stood up. "Daniel told me once that he loved me because I made him want to be better. You made him worse. Remember that." She left after that, walked out of the cafe and out of my life. I sat there for hours, reading every letter, understanding, finally, the full weight of what I'd done. I hadn't just been the other woman. I'd been a symptom of his weakness, a manifestation of his fear. He'd used me to avoid the hardest parts of loving someone, the sickness, the terror, the possibility of loss. And I'd let myself be used because I was too selfish to ask the questions that mattered. The fantasy I'd built, the one where we were star-crossed lovers fighting against an unjust world, was a lie. He wasn't fighting for me. He was running from her, from reality, from his own inadequacy. I never contacted Daniel again. I heard through mutual professional circles that he and Sarah renewed their vows on their anniversary, that they're trying for a baby, that he calls her his hero. Maybe he's different now. Maybe almost losing her changed him. Or maybe he's just better at hiding who he really is. I'll never know. What I do know is this: I will carry what I did for the rest of my life, not as a dramatic burden or a romantic tragedy, but as a quiet, constant reminder of how easy it is to become someone you never thought you'd be, how love, or what we call love, can make us cruel, how we can convince ourselves that our happiness matters more than someone else's survival. I was the other woman, and when I met his wife, I understood everything. I understood that love isn't about intensity or passion or feeling alive. It's about showing up when it's hard. It's about staying when everything in you wants to run. It's about choosing someone's pain over your own comfort. Sarah taught me that, not through forgiveness. She never forgave me, and she didn't have to. She taught me through her strength, through her decision to love a flawed man through the worst moments of her life, through her grace in facing the woman who'd betrayed her without even knowing her name. I think about her often, about the letters she wrote, about the life she fought for while I played house with her husband, and I hope, God, I hope, that she's happy, that her remission holds, that she gets the life she deserves. As for me, I'm still here, still living with what I did, still learning how to be better than I was, because at the end of the day, that's all we can do. Learn, change, and try never to be that person again, even when it would be so much easier to be.
For more videos, please subscribe, like, and comment.